I just want to rescue everybody and so on. And then father always told me, you cannot do that, girl. You cannot carry all the pain of the world on your shoulders. So I came to that even with this little bit, with something little tiny, we can contribute.
Welcome to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. This is Chris Miller. I invite you to join me as I interview artists from a variety of disciplines. We'll share powerful stories and lessons learned while making their art. Good day, listeners. This is CJ Miller, the host of the Spiritual Artist Podcast. I am actually tingling all over my body because I had someone reach out to me from the Czech Republic. Is that correct? Czech
Yes,
Republic?
from Czech Republic.
And her philosophy is so much in line with who I am and how I'm teaching that I'm excited to unpack this and talk about where we overlap and what new things are there to learn. So let me introduce Magdalena Westman. She is a Czech art therapist and author whose groundbreaking methods help people unlock creativity through intuitive mark making and group reflection. Let me repeat that. She helps people unlock creativity through intuitive mark making and group reflection. Who does that sound like? With over a decade of experience, she leads workshops and seminars across Europe and recently published a highly praised book on art therapy. Her signature approach, combining fast, unconscious doodling with deep emotional exploration, offers participants lasting insight and a renewed perspective on life. Oh my gosh, Magdalena, this is just so me. So I'm so glad.
Yes, I think
So
so also.
I know I think just whatever we talk about is going to be so wonderfully interesting. And you said you got a copy of my book, but I want to, you know what, I took your bio and I had my chat GPT condense it. And when it phrased it, I'm like, well, that's me, unconscious doodling with deep emotional exploration. And that, listeners, is what I call spiritual asemic writing. So it's just a different word. Same thing, do you think, Magdalena?
Yes, exactly. Because when I was thinking, when I met you for the first time, and I went through my papers and I have notices everywhere and so on, I realized while I was studying doodling, things about doodling, I found some very interesting material from the lady, which is not from this European and American circles, but from the other part of the world, a very interesting article of doodling. Then all of a sudden, YouTube brought me, or you emerged there with your Asamic writing. So I immediately went there and I said, it's unbelievable. It's always when I'm searching for something either absolutely the same or something a little bit different come to me. So I immediately take it, of course. It's always catch of a day. And I went to your podcast and I was absolutely fascinated because the way you were presenting the things, then I thought that man is so close to me, how I feel things, how I experience them, and how I would like to give them and not to offer them to other guys.
Well,
Yes.
you know what is fascinating. I've done this from a creative viewpoint, and I don't have I don't have a background that I would think of in healing or therapy. But I do realize that when my students come to a retreat, they're getting a type of therapy.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, I mentioned to you before we started to shoot this. I listened to your podcast, for about 20 of them or every single day because I, I must say that now I know you much more than you know me, obviously, and through your book as well. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I just think I have nothing to add. I just would sign everything what you said. And what I would like to mention, because we are with you in the United States, States, that you remind me some so-called phyletic approach, which was presented for school education by American philosopher Brody. Have you ever heard the name? And
No.
the phyletic approach is very simple. It's not didactic, it's not heuristic, but this is the approach when you love your students and you are their friend, you are their helper and facilitator. And I must tell you, I must give you my biggest compliment because I'm from a previous communist country. And even if I study art therapy much later, because I could not study from political reasons, I study in the new era, so-called in capitalism in Czech Republic, still this totalitarian approach and very strict school approach to kids, that they have to do it this way. This is the only way how you can do it. And if you will not accept that, you cannot do it, and so on. So for me, it was like balm on my soul, your approach. So my big compliment to it's absolutely fantastic. You would be teacher that people in Czech Republic would love. Full
Well,
stop.
thank you. So that is it's very interesting. When I first started, I called myself a spiritual teacher, and I switched that over to spiritual guide because that's what I'm doing. I can't. That people will attract their own message and their own learning. I'm just here to help them see how to do it. Does that make sense? It's a little
Yes.
different. I'm not leading. I'm guiding. Just hey, yeah, and this is how it goes. This is how I do it. So how did you find this doodling approach? You've have a lot of background in therapy, and how
Yes.
how did you stumble upon it?
You know what? First thing I would like to ask you. I think that there is a little difference between doodling and scribbling.
Hmm.
And when I send you the basic text about me, the artificial intelligence translated to doodling. And
Hmm.
I think what I really do is scribbling, and what I'm studying more. Doodling is also very interesting. But I think from the material I studied, doodling can be also like free drawing lines and so on. But often they are little pictures, that people have some automatic like houses and so on and whatever, doesn't matter. Sometimes it could be scribbling, but scribbling is more unconscious thing, which is also you mentioned in some your podcast Victor Lowenfeld, which
Yes,
we
I have his
obviously
book.
had at school. But scribbling was something what is my main focus, because doodling also, they are very similar. There is a little nuances between them. But I would like to talk more about scribbling. And this was interesting for me because this scribbling was traditionally connected with the developmental psychology, with the certain phase of the childhood. Usually scribbling, Victor Lowenfeld is describing, for example, it goes from 0 to 2, and then later on is so-called control scribbling and so on. But what I love of scribbling, and what you said in the beginning of that program, that I'm trying to unblock the creativity, which is very often inhibited in people due to the wrong school education, I'm trying to get them to that childlike setting, This is the best setting for everybody, for the whole world, because the children, they see the world with the marvel at something, the word marvel. This
Yeah.
is the ability, we should, all of us, to get the ability to marvel at the world, to be astonished, to be amazed. And this is what I'm doing here, because I'm living sunk in the nature. So for me, everything is fantastic. And so I have this childlike perspective of the world, which means this perspective makes you actually the majority of time very happy. And so this is exactly that I found that scribbling leads there, which means that if I'm starting with people with scribbling, but my methods are much more complicated because I'm using scribbling as the only first part, and we are then developing scribbling into the picture, into the normal picture. But when I'm working with different kind of people with different education, different nationalities, and so on, many of them, they are permanently repeating, I cannot draw, I cannot paint, they damage me at school and so on. I had, just for you to know, I had absolutely the same experience like you had. And then I would like to be back also to parents, because I have some very funny story for you as well. It's very similar. So those people, they are permanently repeating, I cannot do it. And what makes them afraid is the blank paper from that space, and especially if they have information that the healthy person start to draw in, I don't know, 10 seconds and so on, then it makes people so scared and anxious to start that this scribble helping them. So, and I just came to that scribbles, just use them as a first part of my methods through the people with mental handicap. When I started to work with them, it brought me there. And then I invented methods which are actually working with everybody. And the start is for them easy, because the first instruction in all my three methods, I will mention them a little bit later, is just don't think and do quickly some scribble on the paper. If you feel that you are tending to rationally control it, just close your eyes or do something like that, that you can see it. Just for you, all 3 years I was studying art therapy, I had to have something over my eyes, because I'm also the one who is tending to control it with rational mind, and do the scribbling. Right, and then I have through 3 methods. I would like to tell people more about it. But the first part of it, to scribble and not thinking about it. Some direction or some school in art therapy, they are telling they are saying it is unconscious mind what is doing this. I'm interpreting only a little bit, very light way. It's mainly what I'm doing is reflection, how people feel while they are using my methods and so on, and only very little interpreting people and those pictures, So I would like to say one other thing about scribbling. Long years, they thought that doodling and scribbling has absolutely zero meaning. It was in the special literature everywhere. It's just they call it like stepping phase or stepping stone to something, to some later normative drawing and painting. And
Right.
nowadays they think it's different. And what is also very interesting, that Lowenfeld is writing, that is our sensomotory, ties when we are small, and this is the phase when the child is small, doing this kind of those are reflex, like they are moving the hands and the legs and so on. But later on, they realize that it is also evolutionary ties we have to. And this was the experiment which I actually found, or not only experiment, it was long research. And I found it already in the 3 different books. And they say that we are very similar to chimpanzee. So you know that. So 98 up to 99 DNA material, we have the same, right? And you know what they discovered? That everything goes, this scribbling goes from those chimpanzee when they are making their bed. They are sitting in the tree in the middle of that bed, and they are doing a rhythmic movement like that, and taking the branches and making the bed. And they say there is some connection between us, that it is deeper in us, this scribbling, that we think. And that is why I think it's very interesting to work with it.
Okay, so all right, there's like I'm putting all these notes in. I'm trying to keep up with you because there's a lot in there. So let's first talk about that. You prefer the word scribbling to doodling, and I want to tell you a little story. I started writing. I started doing this, and I saw a semic drawing, and I've done a video, and it's gotten a lot. It's gone viral, and someone wrote me because in the video I say, if you're trying to make it look pretty, it's not truly spiritual asemic. And this guy got all like, oh, yes, it is. I'm like, no, 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 because your mind is involved. If you're trying to make this the what you're doing with that brush pretty and look like calligraphy, you're in your head. And I want you to be in the body, in the I think it's
Exactly.
subconscious. So I think, and I said, look, I can choose whatever word I want because words aren't 100%. Like you just said, the difference between doodling and scribbling and asemic writing. So what I like to focus is on what the definition is rather than the word, the definition. And what I'm hearing from you is it's going back to that very primitive stage of development where you're
Yeah,
just,
scribbling.
right, yes.
Scribbling is there, very, and doodling is very interesting, because I would like to say one thing, maybe some people don't know, even if it's from your country. There is a still opposition to this kind of doodling and scribble and so on. There are two camps, like in everything, and fighting what is right, what is wrong. And what is very interesting, that some man, I think his name is Green, Mr. Green, he's American, and he published the book when he's got doodling from Oval Office from 20 presidents, and it is very interesting for you to find the book, because you can see it's different thing. You are perfectly right that they were in mind, they were thinking about something and so on, but you can perfectly read something out of them. But also doodling, they say, previously they say they don't like it as schools, that kids they doing. I was the one who was doodling all my life, having somebody on a telephone and doodling. Also some kids, they are doing that, and teachers, they don't like it. They say, look at straight to my eyes, you are
Right.
not, your attention is so bad, and I want you to look at me, and so on. And now they make another research. They say guys who can doodle while they are listening some lecture or whatever, they remember from that more than those guys who are not doing anything. And they say it's better for 29%, which is high number, because what they say also, that when you are doodling, this does not let you go to daydreaming, so doodling has its own probably some cons, but not for me. I like it. But scribbling is the main thing I'm focused on.
So I think what it does is, and when I do workshops, oftentimes I'll read a chapter of my book and I'll have them doodle. I'll even give them a coloring book page or a page, and I'll say doodle while you listen. And they retain
Perfect.
what I'm saying much better than in an audience. If they're just sitting there looking ahead and trying to, they don't, their mind is not getting occupied, but the colors and the stroke occupies their mind so that their subconscious, their whole selves can actually hear what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, because you know what happened to me when I met you. Then I had my seminar workshop. You call it retreat, which is much more sympathetic. But I have to give them
Yeah.
some theory and so on. And so I had in my mind doodling, asemic writing. Then I would like to show you the book. You must read it. Tim Ingold lines, which was, it's absolutely amazing book. And then I went to that workshop, and that was there some teacher from the university and teaching drawing and painting and so on. Very interesting lady. And the whole 2 days, because my workshop and seminars, how we call it, they are taking in total 17 hours, and this is Saturday and Sunday. And this lady the whole time did doodling. One day I will send it to you. It's absolutely fascinating what they did. I said, what are you doing, lady? And she said, no, I'm making doodling while you are telling us things. Is very interesting and so on. So it went all together, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Yes, it is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Do you think, I want to ask you one question, then we're going to talk about your methods. Do you think that scribbling turns into doodling? Like that in time, if you start with just scribbling, that it will slowly morph into a type of doodling?
No, I'm not too
Do
sure.
you,
This is, I don't know. I don't think so. Tada. I cannot say anything to that, but I would like if it would not be like that, because I see those things, if they have something together, definitely a lot. Doodling can be also so little pictures and so on, as you said. This could be something which is actually has got some certain shape, and it is automized. How do you say that? People are doing that repeatedly, like obsession and so on. It's slightly different if you put them to the blank sheet and or blank canvas or whatever, and tell them scribble like that. It's always different. But the doodling can be the same, because people are doing the same things often when they are, and then you cannot work with it so much. But how you do it when you are reading for them, and they are doodling while you are reading, that is, I think it's great. But if they go scribbling to doodling, I don't know exactly.
well, we'll have to table that. It's all about the definition, right? Like how you
Yes,
define something. So,
yes,
so with your process, and what I have been doing more recently is you scribble. You start with scribbling,
yes.
and
And just for you to know, this is the method, the first method I invented. I'm from
okay.
the childhood wanted to invent something, and I could not, because especially not in drawing, painting, because they taught me, forget about it, you have no talent and so on. Just for you. So I was working for about 7 years with people with mental,
Challenges or
we say as
yeah,
mentally retarded, and now it's different. And so they were beautiful pictures. I had a lot of exhibitions, big one in Prague and everywhere and so on. And then I have to find something else. And my mother was a psychologist, psychotherapist, and she was working with schizophrenic patients and so on. And those days when I had exhibitions in Prague, I had to sit down because everything was made on the knee, we say in Czech. I had no money, so I had to prepare everything, sit there and so on. And afternoon, I had my mother back home. She was very old those days, and I had to entertain her somehow. I said, Mother, let's go and we will be drawing together. And mother said, okay, we will be drawing how I did it with my patients and so on. And we took the piece of paper and started to draw. But it was like mother was drawing on one side and I was drawing on the other side. And then I told mother, I don't like it like that. We are not connected, right? And in that moment, imagine what happened to me. It went through my mind, one memory to my childhood. As a young girl, I was sitting, there was winter, the stove is, the heat is from stove, we have tea with mother talking together. and I'm holding the, how to say, skein of yarn or something.
Yes.
You know, how to call it exactly?
Yarn, like a
Yarn.
skein.
And mother was making the ball out of it. And this was something what for me is causing something around my stomach, like almost bliss. But the bliss was from this connection. We were connected through that line, through that wall. And just for you to know, I said, yes, that is exactly this. That is the scribble. That is the line. That is everything. Then I was thinking, aha, that is go to the spiritual artist. That is the vertical. That is the line which is going through us as a medium and go on the paper. And I will start with that. And plus, it goes to Greek mythology. I don't know if you know the story. This was the story when the Crete lost the war with the Athens, right, in Greece, right? And the daughter of the king from Crete, Minos, she fell in love with some man. His name was Theseus, and he's supposed to kill Minotaur. He was in this big labyrinth.
Oh yeah.
Minotaur was the creature which got bull head and big body. And that girl, Ariadne, loved that man, Theseus, and she gave him ball of wool when he went to the labyrinth to be able to go back, you know. I felt it, I experienced it by myself that the thread is very interesting. And this in this book, he is talking about line, and line means also thread, and takes you also to the linen. And then, just for your asemic writing, it takes you to weaving, right? And weaving and writing then. It is in us and we have to work with it, right?
So it's this story of a line, and then
Yes,
you remembered
yes,
you remembered something from your past with your mother, where you were
yes,
doing yarn,
yes,
and now and
yes.
then you're actually sitting with her, and you were saying that you were working separately on the page. So
Yes,
what
and
did you
I
do
wanted to
next?
connect it, and
Okay.
from that, it was the, and I said how I will do that in a practice. So then we started. I told her, mother, now do the scribble, and the scribble we are doing fast without lifting the pencil out of the paper, right? And
Right.
when the one end, the other one exactly in that point start and do the other scribble, and we are making one second and so on, we are changing, and we are making so-called network of lines. And then those two people say when it is enough, they feel it if it's enough, you know, they look at it, that is enough. And the third person's got the task to take it, to use the lines the way he wanted, which means he doesn't have to use every line. What is forbidden is erasing, because this is the parallel to life. What we experience, we cannot erase. It is fading and other stuff is going in front. So no erasing, it's staying there. But he can add, the third person can add to the drawing, to those lines, whatever he wants. And the task is makes out of it the picture. In the end, the authors are three of them, because that picture, what the third one will do, would never exist without those two before him, you know. Everybody is happy. In the beginning, people, especially in my country, because we are from communist time, if you say long time, if you said collective, you know, it was like problem, you know, because finally they were so happy that they had the different regime, and the individual guys are, you know, individuality can express and so on. Yes, this is only one part of all I do with people, because I'm working also individually partly collectively and fully collectively. This is for them to have the experience what is collective working, collaboration, cooperation, which we definitely need in our lives, which means for you also would be interesting that I'm using the art, painting and drawing as a tool, which is helping me to develop the creativity, imagination, and then transfer it to the normal life for solution of our everyday problems, and situation and so on. I'm happy when people get to that aha moment, when after those 2 days, they tell themselves, aha, I can look on my not art, but on my life, also from different perspective. And it is working.
Right.
So this triangle, the first part is how I describe it. I sent you some photos, but I don't know if we can show it or not.
I can have them slide on. So this method that you told me, let me repeat this for the listeners, is you have two people together on one sheet of paper. One person starts a line. When they stop, the next person starts exactly where they stopped and then does their own line. They
Yes,
continue in this back and forth process until they feel, and this is instinctual, I'm done. It's filled. There's no more.
yes, yes,
They
yes,
stop, and then a third person comes in, and that third person looks at the image and creates what they see in it.
yes,
Now they don't have to use everything. And you said this is kind of a metaphor for life, is we come in with all this story, I will say
exactly,
story, and we
exactly
work with,
this.
we isolate, we focus, what we focus on. I love this. What we focus on is so important, because when we don't focus on it, you don't have to erase the line. You can't erase the line, but it does fade back a little bit, because as you build new material on the front, those
That is
soft.
exactly.
Okay, did I
No.
get that right? Yeah.
Yes, because you are doing that. You are not, you are doing exactly that. I said what I will be, because he is doing what I'm very heavily describing.
I'll tell
Yes,
you, there's a couple differences though. So you call that the triangle method because there's three people involved,
yes,
which I love. So I will tell you, one of the differences, I have done that, but I also have given my artists permission to pick up. They don't have to pick the line. They don't have to start the line exactly where they just react to it. So I teach them
yes,
to react to it. So if I do this, someone else might do what, just the difference. I don't know if it matters or not, but
yes,
I do like the idea. I want to tell you this, Magdalena, that as I've progressed, when I first started doing this activity, people worked alone. And I found I just got the idea to put them against each other. And I call it dueling, with a sword, dueling a semic. They're dueling. And they love it. The
lovely.
interaction with another person, it moves them ahead. And from my experience, they actually learn so much about themselves by the way they react to the other person.
Absolutely.
If the other person starts doing something really fast, some people go slow down, like it triggers you. Other times you're like, "Oh, I like the way they're doing that. How come I don't do it that way?" It's a wonderful growth tool.
Yes.
Last thing I want to tell you is the third person coming in, what you see, and that's in that article you sent me, is it's sort of like am I pronouncing this right? Rorschach blot test.
Yeah, this is what I mentioned in my book, this Rorschach
Rorschach.
test.
Yes.
Yes, they use it. You don't know about the test, no,
A little bit.
a little bit.
It's what
But
you
this is
see in it.
like, yes, yes, what you see in it, they are just, there is an opposition, but they are still using that mainly with schizophrenic, I think. I just went through that test when I was 20 years old, and they told me that they found there a lot of pathology and so on. So I don't like it, this psychoanalytical
They said what?
interpretation.
They found
That's why,
what?
pathology, because
Pathology.
that was like when I was starting art therapy, I started Freud. This is like interpretation of Freud. And for me, it was great. I study again the Freud, everything, but I love prefer Jung, Carl Gustav Jung. But the life is not interpreted only from his point of view. It's much more, I don't like it, and plus what I would like to stress, what I'm doing, I'm not digging and finding pathology in people. I'm trying to find little islands which are balanced and so on, and make them big, for people to feel good, not to put them down, and then, no, I'm working slightly different way. So you ask me for the third person, what they see there usually, yeah.
Hmm.
And this is now when we are, I'm so happy I found you, and you are doing abstract expressionism actually,
Yeah.
which was I was studying 3 years the art history. But when we came to abstract expressionism, it ended obviously, because we are in Europe very much tied up with Greek canon, and it must be figurative. Everything must be figurative and representational, which means that majority of things people are doing. You see that I sent you the things which are like little bit, they are like abstract, some of them, but people tending to do something realistic, people here, they have the idea that they must put there something realistic. But if I tell them, no, you are absolutely free, they feel free also. They feel it as a big relief, or how do you call it, that they don't
Hmm.
have to do it figure. Because I'll tell you what, I was studying at school, and we have to do the realism, and I was not that good in realism from many reasons. I don't like realism, I must say it honestly. Okay, some things, yes, but realism means that you have to take the viewpoint of that author, only his. If you have abstract art, you can find things by yourself, and one day you see this, one day that, and so on. It's much more free, and because I was bad, I had to permanently punish at school. Just for you to know, I study 54 years old, I was the oldest one, but they treat me like 12 years old naughty girl, so I was permanently getting home task, and I had to draw, I'll tell you, and paint 240 paintings to prove them that I'm able to draw a figure and so on, So I'm not using that if people are able, because very often it is very interesting. I have a lot of art teachers on my seminar workshops, I
Me too.
thought
Hmm.
also, no,
Hmm.
because they feel they're free. This is my
Yes.
idea, because I was in the beginning, I was very surprised. I thought those teachers, they will not like it, because my methods are totally different. They say, no, it's so great, I feel free and so on. It's fantastic, because if you tell people, do the figure, so immediately the competition is starting. People are looking to each other. You do bad hand, and it's supposed to be like that. The proportion is bad, and so on. And immediately people, the first anxiety and fear they are coming in, it would be staying with them. So I invented methods which are absolutely, they feel free people in that. And then I wanted to tell you to that triangle, because this is, I would say, my core method. The other two are also interesting, but this one was the first. That this is the first part of triangle, 3 persons, right? And then this is the second one, when sometimes you have 4 or 5 person, and they all of them drawing the lines, and all of them they make big painting, big one, like
Oh, okay.
really with acrylic paint and so on. The first part is that the third person, which is making a picture out of it, or painting out of it, still has the little control over it. But if all of them, they are doing scribbles and working on the painting, they have to negotiate, or sometimes they are negotiate like verbally, sometimes unverbally, and so on, and really trying what it means to work together and to do like productively work together, which is, I would say, fantastic. But another method, another usage of that method, which is fantastic, is sometimes this collective working, this triangle, lead people to individual painting. If they are too afraid, right, which happened to me with my granddaughter. She was very unhappy, but she did it because mother and we did for her the scribbles, and then we told her, now you make the picture. It was fantastic. And then she said, and now you give me paper and I will do the picture myself. So it was repeatedly happened to me that people all of a sudden said, now I'm not afraid. I
Yeah.
started by myself, which means I permanently working individually and collectively. But I must stress, and I would like to stress, that somewhere back in my mind is to build a community of people who can discuss together, tolerate each other, and are able to collaborate together. This is for me very important, which means this societal or social dimension in it. It is also in my work.
Yeah, that's an exact alignment with what how I feel, and the importance of developing a community. And it does. When you do these activities together, they do grow close together.
Yes,
So you have
exactly.
two other methods. I want to make sure we have time for this. You called it the house home. Do you want to talk about that one next? The house home
Yes,
method?
yes.
How
House
does
home.
that?
It's just absolutely fantastic, and it is like there is my big understudy between curve and straight lines. This is for me absolutely at the moment I'm in it. And because I have big problem with straight line and the right angle. So the method is that it's not scribbling, because now it is like conscious thing. They are making I always use A3 paper, never little A4, but A3, and then when we do this big triangle, then big canvas and so on. But for this is enough A3 paper. And the first task is to make triangles and squares which are intersecting like that, whatever, triangles and squares, and with the intersection. And then they've got the instruction. Now you make out of it house, either house of your dream, house you are living in, or think that you are architect and you are making house for some your friend or whatever. And you could not believe it. If you would give them the blank paper, they would probably, those guys who cannot, if you have somebody who is architect and who is a painter, they would do it. But normal people, they would do one house which they were drawing when they were 6 years old, like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
When you give them this, it's unbelievable. The results are unbelievable. This is the first thing. The other thing is that then we are reflecting that how they felt while they are doing that. And they are two different directions. Some people, immediately when they start to talk about home, they are getting to interpersonal relationships, problems, and so on. Then it's really psychotherapy, and I have to be very careful because very serious themes could go out. And some of them, they are talking about house, mainly about how they would like to have a house in the forest and so on. I forgot to say that they should, the instructions is also they should put house into some environment. So there are two directions, either talking about home, but then you know about those guys everything, or a house. And this is also very interesting because we can talk about climate change, about forests, about whatever, and so on. But this direction home is opening people unbelievably. I have to be very careful, and I'm working in a group, so very often it is happening that they are not saying anything, and then one person says something and it is going. Sometimes we are crying there, sometimes I have to run to supervision and have to stop it because things are going out. It's unbelievable because home and house is something what is very deeply in us, and people are this is like touching them in deep layers. So this is very interesting. It will be in my book, and imagine that I had already few lectures about it, and even the architects are interested in that, and they said we would like you to do this with architects, which they are probably also need some inspiration, more like self experience, because just for you to know, I built in early 90s big house, very atypical house, and it was therapy for me. It was like more like I realized who I was actually, what I built, and so on. That's why I have such a close things to that, and people, they love it. This is the middle method. And the first method is, and what is very interesting, is postcard. And I
Oh, wait
was,
a minute. Let me go back to that house home method.
okay, okay.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got this clear.
Yes,
Are they working on how many people on one sheet of paper are doing that?
it's individual,
Individual
totally
people.
individual.
And you said
Yes.
A2 or something.
A3 format of
It-
paper.
we have legal and letter. Is that I'll have to look that up. A format. I'm not sure.
A3 to A4 format. Like this paper what we are normally
Oh,
doing,
horizontal.
they are two of them.
Oh, okay.
They are like that. They are like, this is A3 format. I'm working with that. This is, you
Oh,
must
okay.
find it.
Okay.
Something like that. Yes. Okay.
And I was going to tell you one other thing.
Fine.
Oh, I don't know where the book is. I don't know where the book is, but I found an exercise kind of similar to that that I have. But they instead of draw, this is a little more literal. Instead, you're telling them to draw triangles and squares. They're just drawing triangles and
No
squares.
triangles.
No triangles,
Rectangles
rectangles.
and squares.
Oh, okay. No.
Rectangles and square.
Okay. Um, I have an exercise that I found where they you're told to draw a picture of your favorite room when you were a child. And it's the same thing. It brings up a home.
You
It brings up a,
mentioned it somewhere. You mentioned
yeah.
it somewhere in podcast. I said, even that he's got, I can't believe it. I would like to, I would like to have that book,
I,
because
I,
maybe I could use it for my book, I
I will
would
send you
buy.
the, I know it's terrible.
Okay.
I read so, I read so voraciously. And I
Yes.
know I have it around here and I will find your title and send it to
And
you.
it's fantastic, It's
Yeah.
opening people
Up.
unbelievably,
Now, the funny,
unbelievably.
that book, overall, the book is okay. But that part of the book, I just was like, yes, that's
Yes,
what opens
exactly.
people up because so
Exactly.
much is format, so much happens to us in those first years. So, okay, so your last method, the postcard method, is the
And the
one.
postcard method, I remember last podcast I saw with this Dr. Gardner, right? And you were also talking about some problems, and if you feel blue and depressed and whatever. So this actually I would like to show you because it was inspired with something, but I changed it into totally different thing. Do you know post secret thing?
No.
.com. So find it on the internet. And this is like man Frank Warren realized that people have a lot of trauma and so on. And problem with trauma is often not the trauma itself, but the thing that they cannot share it. People cannot share some secret which is eating them from inside, you know. This is what they say, the specialists. And that man came with the idea that he just printed postcard and put there like instruction that people should post secret, right? Make the little picture, write something to it, it will be anonymously, and send it to me. And he, this little printed postcard, he was leaving in the shops here and there and so on. And you cannot imagine, in a very short time, he got like 3,000, I don't know how many postcards. He made the book out of it, but it's very dark. It's very dark, you know. People are saying horrible, horrible stories. And my nephew, she brought it from America, and she said, Magdalena, you should do it here in Czech Republic because it's fantastic. So I started to prepare that. I talked to theologists, psychologists, to everybody, sociologists. They said it's fantastic project and so on. So I talked to Frank Warren. I said, can I do it in Czech Republic? Yes, you can do it. And so it didn't work in my country. People are afraid to say anything that people will know who I am and so on. Plus, people in my country still solving the problem rather with drinking little bit of
Yeah.
alcohol and so on, you know. So I left the book, which I think is fantastic. You can find it because this project is still going online. So all those postcards I have here, you will see on the postsecret.com. And then I left it. And then I don't know how it came to me. This postcard, I said, I do it different way. And it's actually the warm-up method in the total beginning that they do the is also absolutely individual, but they do the scribble on this A3 format, also a big scribble. They are not thinking about it. Then I give them a little glass sheet in a size of a traditional postcard. And they are going, when they would be some basic for the next picture. And it is same like this triangle. You can use how many lines you want. You can add to something, but make the postcard, you know, out of it. And this is very interesting because you know what, that my idea in that was like, yeah, and the instruction is like that. The word is chaotic. Those are the scribbles they can do different way. Sometimes even hostile place, but there is always a little space we can make beautiful and meaningful. So that is this every my method has got beautiful legend to that. Sometimes when I have time, I want to translate it into English, but it must be proper translation because it's poetic and the parallel with the life is there and so on. So this is their task. Plus, you know what I love on the postcard in general, postcard is open thing, so you can also, if you want to make out of the word better place, you can put something in that postcard and somebody can read it. You can just little bit like figuratively think, like
Oh,
more poetically now, you know, that it is not something which is close, so you can share something which you would like to tell more people and so on. Usually people are doing beautiful pictures and so on. I'm still waiting if there would be something like to do something for my friend, some wish or something. No, they are making beautiful pictures for themselves. But it's also nice because from that chaos, they are making order and something beautiful. And it also has this educative dimension in it, so think about it, that we can still contribute with our little bit. And this is what I have from South Africa when I was working voluntarily, because when I was young girl, I wanted to rescue the whole world. I was helping from my childhood everywhere. Father was preacher, mother, so on. And I just want to rescue everybody and so on. And then father always told me, you cannot do that, girl. You cannot carry all the pain of the world on your shoulders. So I came to that even with this little bit, with something little tiny, we can contribute. And this postcard they love it. You cannot imagine how they can love it. And they
So
can, no?
so let me repeat what I'm thinking you're saying here is that they start with a large sheet of paper and they do the scribble,
Same
and then
like
they take what I would
triangle.
call glassine. It's a clear piece of plastic the size of a
Yes,
postcard. They
yes.
pick an area, and then they take it out. They cut it out.
And they make outline. Ne
Okay,
cutting,
make an
ne,
outline.
outline, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And that they are working in that.
That
But
area.
yes, but from psychological point of view, this is like, I'm not talking so much about art therapy here, because first I think that your approach is absolutely therapeutic, and you cannot talk about therapy. My also, and I'm not talking about it. But what I'm really observing here, how they are able to stay in this little space. Because I'll tell you why I was also interested to invent this method with this little postcard. One inspiration was this post secret, but the other was slightly different. I attended very interesting exhibition of prisoners, right? In Czech Republic, it is still very delayed, that I myself wanted to go and work with prisoners, but it didn't happen, and so on. It's going very slowly to let people to go and work with prisoners. And that was some exhibition. But what I realized that people, first of all, the prisoners were imitating famous artists. And this is exactly what I'm strongly against,
Mm.
because it's not about developing creativity and imagination. It's repeating somebody else's work without knowing how that man Van Gogh, for example, how he lived and so on. First read it, and without that, I don't like it. But what they did also, that Van Gogh, for example, has got a picture 60 to 50, and the man do it 2 meter on 1 meter, that work. And then I said, when when I took or did the parallel to the life, that man who would come out from prison, he will never get that space in his life. No, it's too big for him. He will come to that, he will be back in the world, but his space will be much little. So this is also the thing I think we should talk to people. And then I'm observing if people are able to stay in the postcard, because they have problem, and it is about boundaries. So, and it was very interesting story with some little girl at school, and she came to me and she said, Magdalena, I see there beautiful shark, but the last part of it out of postcard. Can I draw it out? And I said yes, but it was for me perfect feedback that the child feels the boundaries. Some other girl from some very alternative school, she was 19 years old, she said, I feel so claustrophobic here in this postcard, and I couldn't do it. So, and then I can talk to them about this kind of thing, and they are very, it's interesting for them to really to have insight into in this kind of things and so on. But they love to do postcard, and they can do it also postcard for mother, for business and so on, this way. And you know what is also interesting on my methods? There is no pushment or on originality. Every single thing which is coming out of my methods is original without pushing. on the original, because people often have in mind it has to be something special, original, and it makes them it is paralyzing, right, to think like
Right.
that.
It is paralyzing. It is. So, a couple things I was gonna tell you, because I did something similar like that, not this past weekend, but the weekend before. I taught an art workshop, and we did an expressive painting, but they were allowed to crop it down. I had small frames, and they cropped them down to fit into the frame, but they had to choose which area of the painting they liked. And it's about choosing, focusing, and what I call it's in my book, but I call it focus what's on what's working. Focus on the area that is working, and make that bigger. So that it's kind of similar but different with what
Yes,
you're talking about. But I want to tell you something that you might try, that I did at my last retreat. I took a sheet of paper, and I used a platter that I had, but I drew a huge circle, and they had to draw in the circle. And there's something different about when you're working on a rectangle or piece of paper. It's very different from drawing on a circle.
yes.
And it makes you think differently. And I'll show you, I'm actually doing a painting behind me.
I know everything. I'm following you. I saw when it was white, and now I see it. Yes,
Yeah.
it's great.
So I want to tell you, this is really interesting. I had a neat
Yes,
experience with this big circle. Is I started with my white, and then I started with I just threw color on, just color. But then
yes,
I just scribbled. I just scribbled in it. Sometimes it related to what was underneath it, sometimes it didn't. And now I start isolating. I add and subtract and add and subtract. But I'll tell you what, I'm starting to see things come up in it. Start seeing shapes that my subconscious is finding. But what's really interesting, Magdalena, it's not done yet. Every time you turn it, there's a different shape, like a different figure, a different feeling. And it's really interesting that my subconscious could actually produce all these different things on one page. But because when I rotate, I keep rotating as I paint.
yes.
So
And you,
yeah, you have to watch when I finish.
yes, definitely. And I wanted to tell you, which I forgot, obviously, because there are so many things in a little time, that all my methods, people are, I'm telling them, you can turn the paper in your hand how much you want and see the scribble from different angles, and so on. And plus, this round thing is fantastic because I'm making mandala also with
Yeah,
guys. Yes, they together working. Plus, a round shape is fantastic. It's representing the wholeness and so on.
right.
And yes, prostě circle is the main thing in my next book and so on, because I'm like for
I'm
circle.
doing a workshop. I'm doing a workshop
Yes,
in August, and I'm going to do circles. And I'm putting 3 people on each circle because it becomes more than 3 people, but it becomes a community effort. You know what you're drawing, and we'll see. We'll see what I might have them actually trace their hands in there
yes, yes,
and then start doodling or scribbling.
yes,
Let's say scribbling.
yes.
So
It's
anyway,
fantastic.
yeah,
It's
just to
fantastic.
see. But I'm gonna, but I'll be as the leader of the class. See what I'm gonna do, Magdalena, is I when I did this in Santa Fe, I say rotate, like randomly. I just say rotate, and they have to rotate. They have to stop and rotate.
Yes, it's
Wait,
fantastic.
because
Yes, yes.
if I rely on them, sometimes they don't. You know, they sometimes they don't rotate at all. So I'll just say rotate, rotate.
Yeah,
But it
perfect.
keeps them
No?
spinning, right? You know.
Yes, yes. This energy, how you say, in motion, they say emotion, energy in motion, and so on. It's also very interesting. But I wanted to tell you another thing. When I invented triangle, it came COVID. It was 2021. And all of a sudden, I thought I will do 1 year work and then I will exhibit that and so on. And COVID was a problem. So I took two network of scribbles, which they were done by some therapist somewhere. I didn't even who did it. And I sent it all over the world. The same two things, actually two different, but only two different, and ask people from different country to react to it. And it's also in my book, which is for me what was very interesting for me, because from that school, when I studied art therapy, it was permanently that we have to be the same, everybody must paint the same and so on. And I wanted to show that if I give people one scribbling, everybody reacts different way, and it's so interesting. And I would like to tell you one very important thing, and I think you will like it.
This has been great. We're running out of time because we went over here, but is there anything else you want to share, like an overall summation? Or I know that your
No,
book is not in English. Is that correct?
no, never, never.
Uh,
You would love it.
I
You,
know you need to.
especially you would love it, because it's so similar to what you are doing. But I know what I would like to tell you, but we are out of time. So
What?
some things. First thing, the how your mother put it on fridge when you were a child, or your painting,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
father made fun out of you. Just my story. Yeah, I was adult, and I just made some nice picture for my daughter's wedding. They were flowers and so on, but I'm not that realistic, so I think it was very poetic. The painting ended up on toilet in her chalet. Then I gave my ex-husband also it was digital art, and it was a little moral was there, but very slight and little, and it was ended up as well on the toilet. So
On the
your
toilet.
on the toilet, and they told me, all of them, why does it bother you? It's we look at it all the time and so on. So I ended up much worse than you. But what was different was that I had very big support for my parents, especially when I came back from South Africa, because I had those digital collages, about 80 of them, and they are for Czech audience, were very dark, but it was my reaction to the reality in South Africa, and it helped me to survive, actually, because I could put all those tensions I had in culture, which I didn't understand, I put on the paper. So, and my parents and brothers said, you must go this way, even I've got the invitation to lecture about digital art, because those days nobody was doing that here. Now is somewhere else. I lost the track, which I feel sorry. I would like to be back somehow to that, because I still love it, to combine it somehow. And so that was, parents were so supportive. I said, no, it's not, because I'm the one I need for my drawing or painting. I have it in my house, obviously. So I need very strong impulse. I'm not the one who will be sitting in the plein air and sketching. It must come something strong, and then I go and do it. So the painting I sent you is this white figure, which was actually very, very highly evaluated, was in COVID, and I was not thinking about anything and so on. So that I had support, you didn't, but you are your work is fantastic. I really observe very many things, and they are beautiful. And the last thing I have, I think that my strongest side is working with people, because I'll tell you, often the painting and those pictures are beautiful, very much, but they are how to say, side product, right? Everything is based on the trust, and they trust me. I love people, and I think I am very good in working with people. I have it from childhood, actually.
Well, that's wonderful. This has been great. I mean, seeing the similarities and the commonalities has been quite interesting, and so I'm sure we'll keep in touch. And
Yes,
I do wish
definitely.
I wish that I could get your book. You know, with AI now, you think you could just have it read through the book and translate it, and
Yes, I
uh,
think so. It will be possible,
yeah,
but I could send it to you.
yeah,
Yes,
you could do that.
we will organize it.
Yeah,
Yes.
you could do that.
Yes.
If you have a PDF of it, the my chat can read a PDF. Thank you for being on the show. This has been great. I've loved meeting you and seeing the similarities and seeing that this message reflects people all across the world. You know, it's important work. And whether you're using art to grow creatively or whether you're using art spiritually or whether you're using art to heal or grow personally, it's all valid. And Magdalena, I do agree with you that it's not about the final product, it's about the process, you know.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so listeners, thank you for listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast and following this. Go up there and like this episode, and keep listening for more interesting interviews with people from around the world talking about how creativity can help grow you. And thanks again for listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. Thanks again for listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. Whether you're watching this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or iHeartRadio, make sure you choose the subscribe button so that you will receive updates when new segments are released. Most importantly, be still, listen, and know that you are a spiritual artist.